The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And the monitor's not on. I'll go turn it on.
The monitor was on. Not sure what happened to it. I hate dead air. Dead air, 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 dead air.
I hate even more. I hate people that come here and don't put their microphones away, and I gotta spend 5 minutes untangling their microphone cord from the chairs.
Yep, I hear you. It happens a lot. I want to blame Carlos, but I don't think it was Carlos because they use a virtual set. So they used against the wall.
They
over
also
there.
use a virtual reality over there, but that's okay. Well, welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Monday, live in the Riv, or semi-live. Are we on Facebook today?
We are on Facebook.
Hoorah.
And we are on YouTube.
Well, we're always on YouTube.
Well, most of the time we're on
Yeah,
YouTube.
YouTube is fairly consistent. It's the Facebook feed we've had some
Right,
problems on.
Right, because that's because we use a separate transmitter from what I use here, because I have control of YouTube and everything over here.
Yeah.
But that Facebook feed is in another room, and I've got to
That's right.
play with it.
In a
so.
hermetically sealed jar.
And I can't get to it all the time, especially if I'm on the air. Unlike you, who gets up and goes straight on the monitor.
Well, yeah. Well, I have no choice because you'd have to leave there. So, I mean, that's the problem with you're spending your time unraveling cord rather than,
I hear you.
doing this stuff. So, okay, 2 Fall River agencies contend for economic development funds. Oh, boy. Vying for funding to help advance economic development in the city. Okay, he's received applications. These people are getting, I think you were singing that verse from the song, Money for Nothing.
Money for nothing and chicks for free.
Yeah, because this is what this is all about. They're vying for money for development, and how much development we had over the last, we don't get anything here.
No.
Except large companies looking for TIFs.
Right.
And we've already proven that TIFs don't do any good to the economy.
Exactly.
So we can only develop our economy if we train the workforce for jobs that are out there. There are 7 million jobs in this country unfilled. But we have people that are unemployable for one reason or another. And one of the big reasons is lack of training. And it's not college level training. It's medium tech training.
Technical training, that's it.
Technical training. So, when I read this stuff, it just drives me, Redevelopment Authority Economic Director. We got that name that every once in a while appears. It's like it's like finding it's like finding a well in the middle of a desert. It's a mirage. Does she really exist, or is she a mirage?
No, she exists because she's getting paid. So.
Well, that doesn't necessarily mean she exists, but So 2 applications. What a big deal.
It's 2 applications, but there's 3. There's 2 people, but 3 applications. Because if you look at this, and you got to look at it closely, because if you don't look at it closely, you get lost. Maria Marasco, who is the Economic Development Director for RDA.
And who doesn't live in the city.
Who doesn't live in the city, submitted 2 applications for funding. One requested for $250,000 to fund the agency's urban development initiative. What it will do is allow urban renewal projects to move forward, including identifying buildings that could be acquired by the city. Just what the city needs to do, acquire more real estate.
Yeah, more real estate
that they can't handle.
That they don't maintain.
Right.
and become even bigger eyesores.
Right.
Yeah, also, didn't they hire her to develop the economy?
Right. Now, and that's
So-
where her second application is. Another application requests $450,000 to continue the redevelopment authority contract with the city for economic development
So
efforts.
she's being funded by taxpayer money. She's going out looking for more taxpayer money to do what she's already getting taxpayer money to do. Why doesn't she actually do something and develop our economy by bringing in businesses who are willing to spend money in Fall River, not get money?
Isn't this...
She wants to get money to get more companies over here that are going to take money
Right.
from Fall River in tips and Shalitos and Bolitos and burritos and every other thing. But the thing is, what do we got? We've got they're going to continue to give tips, our city council, in spite of the fact that I know they all got a link to that article by
Oh, yeah.
by those, those low-level brains at Princeton and Columbia.
Yeah, the people that don't know
University.
anything.
Don't know anything. And it was a pretty comprehensive study. But you'd think they'd, Fall River, so we hire an economic payer with our money, and then she goes out and tries to get more of our money to do a job that technically is, you develop your economy by what? You bring in clients, you bring in people, you bring in companies that are willing to invest in Fall River, not for us to invest in them.
Right.
Give them more money, because that's all we ever do is beg people to come here, not make this place an attractive place to come to by having a workforce that's primed and ready to go. Years ago, they loved to come to Fall River because you needed no skill. They'd give you a one-day class in running a sewing machine, and you could work. And I'm not demeaning that occupation, because my mother worked in a sewing shop
No,
for her
but
whole
you're right.
life. But the fact is, that was the economy of the day. So who did they get? They got people who were fundamentally immigrants and first-generation people who couldn't go to school. They were too busy trying to make a living. When they were growing up, they didn't have Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren to give them everything for free and promise them everything for free.
Something for nothing.
They actually had to go to work. Even if they had the brains, they had to go to work. It didn't matter how smart you were. If you had the potential to be a Nobel Prize winner, in the old days, it was like, okay, my mother and father lived through the Depression, as did yours, most likely.
Oh, yeah.
Your grandparents. So they lived through the Depression. They had no choice in the Depression. There was no work. That was it. As soon as you got old enough, they had to find some kind of job to bring money in. It created a society tough enough to win the Second World War. We can almost thank our lucky stars it occurred then.
Right.
And they got a generation, the greatest generation, that had to learn that they had to earn what they got. And this is the new trend. You hire somebody, she only works 4 days. I guess she must have done this on a Thursday, because Friday she's off. She filled out these applications, or maybe she'll say that's what she was doing on Friday.
Yeah.
When she doesn't show up at work. And she puts in for more money. Keep getting the taxpayer money. Well, soon there won't be any taxpayers. And we keep going like this because you're destroying the middle class.
Well, here's the interesting thing. She's asking for $650,000 total, okay? Now, when Ken Fiola had Froed, he was operating with a $440,000 budget, a lot less than she's asking for. And by the way, Bristol County Economic Development Committee or Council or whatever they call themselves is also applying. And guess how much they're asking for? $400,000.
Yeah. Two pseudo-government entities that work hand in glove with administrations begging for more money.
Right.
So this is like a giant circle. It's not the circle of life. It's the circle of end of life for the city of Fall River. Because they create these jobs. They give people jobs who don't show up for work. And by the way, we are on Facebook. I just went on Facebook to look at something that I saw yesterday, I don't know, because there's like a billion posts every minute, so I probably won't be able to find it again. But you know, all they do is just drain the taxpayers, ask for more loans, and what do they do with the loans? They got two CPA loans to fix a roof. We don't even know if that roof's ever been fixed. Question is, why did they get a second loan? Why didn't somebody ask the question? What did you do with the money we gave you to fix it in the first place?
Actually, that money from CPA is not a loan. It's a grant.
Well, grant loan.
Okay. Now, here's the interesting thing, though, here. Bristol County Economic Development Corporation has been providing economic development assistance through block grant funding since 1978 until Jason Correa pulled that block grant funding away from them. This is something historically we have been providing for the city, and I think our track record speaks for itself, said Fiola. Fiola said the agency has loaned out $78 million to Fall River businesses, leading to the creation of more than 15,000 jobs. What can Maria Moresco say she's done? Honestly, what has she done? She gave a tax incentive to a business that might be coming here from Newport so that their property isn't taxed because they don't own any land?
And what did she do? She didn't bring them in to invest in the community.
No.
The community invested in them. The taxpayer had to foot the bill.
Right.
So again, this is the reason I say 90% of these jobs, we shouldn't have them. We can't develop the economy. We should be concentrating on training our workforce. Oh, I found it.
You found it finally.
Finally. This is a quote from one of my two favorite presidents, Abraham Lincoln.
Because the founder of the Republican Party.
Yeah, and who obviously understood enough to bring the country together in its greatest time when we had a civil war, which we're pretty close to again now with the. It was so, and in this society, now here's a guy who was self-educated, educated himself reading by a fire and by candlelight. And this is one, and he's made so many great, he's left so many great speeches to us, like the opening of the Untold Story of Labor, the Gettysburg Address. But this is a really good one. I haven't seen this one in a while. You cannot bring about prosperity by discouraging thrift. You cannot strengthen the weak by weakening the strong. You cannot help the wage earner by pulling down the wage payer. You cannot further the brotherhood of man by encouraging class hatred. You cannot help the poor by destroying the rich. You cannot keep out of trouble by spending more than you earn. You cannot build character and courage by taking away man's initiative and independence. You cannot help men, listen to this, this is the end. You cannot help men permanently by doing for them what they should do for themselves.
Oh my God, it sounds like common sense.
Huh? The man, now, look, this could be applied to what's going on in the nation today. It's astounding. Abraham Lincoln was the President of the United States during the Civil War. That's 2 centuries ago. On the calendar, not 200 years, but, you know, when was he killed? 1865, right?
Yep.
He was assassinated, I believe, in 1865.
In Ford's Theater.
That's right. And isn't it amazing? He's telling you, giving people everything for free does not help people permanently, because you need to keep subsidizing them forever. Amazing. Abraham, you were one of the most brilliant men this country ever had the honor to have as president. And they should listen and pay attention to things, because, you know, as we're looking at this disaster, and we look at Fall River, you give people a job, you pay them money with taxpayer funds, you tell them to help the city, and they don't help the city. They go back and look for more taxpayer money to subsidize other entities that are taking taxpayer money in TIFs and giveaways. So what are they bringing to Fall River? That's my question, CJ. Can you tell me what good bringing companies here that we have to pay their taxes for, and then bail out as soon as their TIFs are gone, or don't employ virtually anyone from Fall River? What good does this economic policy do? And then the council doesn't ever utter a word about this kind of stuff.
They are so afraid that they're not going to get a business. They are so afraid that they're not going to get a business.
Oh yeah, then people will say
that they kowtow.
You're anti-business. No,
right.
we're anti bringing things in that actually hurt the economy. We said long before Columbia and Princeton put it down in facts, because they did an in-depth, exhaustive study of the effects of TIFs on the economy. And I think if I remember correctly, and I got a fairly decent memory, when we were looking at that, one of the things they said is it actually reduced housing prices by, I think, 4%.
Right.
Overall. So it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything for the economy. But this is what Fall River always does. Keep taking it away from the few people that are left that pays taxes, and that's why, ladies and gentlemen out there in the audience, that's why you got that giant tax bill this year. And that's why you will continue to get that giant tax bill every year until we drain the swamp.
Wait, it's going to get better. It's going to get better because remember, very shortly, we're going to have the debt override.
That's
the debt
right.
exclusion.
And it's not going to be a baby shock,
Exactly.
It's going to be the mommy shock coming at, and the daddy shock,
and here's
your tax bills.
And here's the big problem, because we still haven't been told. They only said the cost is going to be $118. Is that $118 a month? $118 a quarter? $118 a year? What is it?
$118 per thousand of assessment?
We don't
know.
know. Right, we don't know what it is because they never were clear on that.
No.
Just like when they do a water bill increase and they say, oh, it's only going to be 10 cents more for the water, and it's going to average out to be $21 or more in the bill, and then it ends up being $100 more. You cannot go around and do that and say those type of things without clarifying them. And it's about time that the city council asks for those clarifications.
Yeah, but if they did that, they'd actually have to do their homework.
Right, which they don't do.
And even if they don't do their homework, you send them something all the time. We do shows on it. I call them, and I periodically send them things. It's not, if they're going to plead ignorance, which they shouldn't, because that's what they're getting paid to do. That's what they ran for office to do, represent the people. But the reality is they can't say they didn't know. They can't say they didn't know.
They like to, though.
Because they will pretend that, but we will remind everybody. Because this is the problem that we have in our society. And we look at this economic development article. This is a microcosm of everything that is wrong in the city of Fall River. We hire political hacks who look for loans that deplete the taxpayers' funds again. Now they're looking for, federal funds are your money too. You pay federal taxes, state taxes, local taxes. So every single penny that you get that's from any source of tax revenue is coming out of your pocket.
Of course.
And this shows an simple concept, but it seems like an abstract alternate universe to politicians. To me, economic development is when you bring people in who invest in the community, who spend their money and infuse it into the community. Not we give them our money. No. We hire somebody, give her our money to develop the economy, Even though we know that you can't develop the economy by bringing businesses in, you got to do it by having people work. But let's say, but they won't even bring businesses in that will contribute to the society, because you got everybody that gets a TIF. Now we're giving personal TIFs, which is another dangerous thing. Then you got the whiners from the Chamber of Commerce saying don't raise that, we need less taxes because that's what we need for business. No, you need people with money. So it's disturbing. But since we're on this track of reminding everybody how and why we need to drain the swamp, I'm going to bring out an oldie but goodie. I was going through my files the other day, and we read this letter a few years ago, and I think it's worth reading again because it talks about why, with all the crap that's going on in Washington, the fact that we don't have people's addresses anymore, they're redacted, transparency issues and things. I think it's good. This is called Charlie Reese's Final Column. I think you remember it.
I remember it quite well.
And the title of this column, he was a reporter for the Orlando Sentinel for over 40 years. This was his final column to tell people. I guess a political reporter. 545 versus 300 million people by Charlie Reese. Politicians are the only people in the world who create problems and then campaign against them. Think about that opening. That's a great opening. Have you ever wondered if both the Democrats and Republicans are against deficits, why do we have deficits? Have you ever wondered if all politicians are against inflation and high taxes, why do we have inflation and high taxes? You and I don't propose the federal budget, the president does. You and I don't have the constitutional authority to vote on appropriations. The House of Representatives does. You and I don't write the tax code. Congress does. You and I don't set fiscal policy. Congress does. You and I don't control monetary policy. The Federal Reserve Bank does. 100 senators, 435 congressmen, 1 president, and 9 Supreme Court justices equates 545 human beings out of 300 million. And they are directly, legally, morally, and individually responsible for the domestic problems that plague this country. I excluded the members of the Federal Reserve Board because that problem was created by the Congress. In 1913, Congress delegated its constitutional duty to provide a sound currency to a federally chartered but private central bank. I excluded all the special interests and lobbyists for a sound reason. They have no legal authority. They have no ability to coerce a senator, a congressman, or president to do one cotton-picking thing. I don't care if they offer a politician $1 million in cash. The politician has the power to accept or reject it. No matter what the lobbyist promises, it is the legislator's responsibility to determine how he votes. Those 545 human beings spend much of their energy convincing you that what they do and what they did is not their fault. They cooperate in this common con, regardless of party. What separates a politician from a normal human being is an excessive amount of gall. No human being would have the gall of a speaker who stood up and criticized the president for creating deficits. Now listen to this one, everybody, especially CJ, because we're always talking about this. The president can only propose a budget. He cannot force Congress to accept it. So let's change the wording of that paragraph. It doesn't matter what the mayor stood up and said, and you can't blame him for creating deficits. The mayor can only propose a budget. He cannot force the city council to accept it. Ah, does that ring true now, huh? The Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, gives the sole responsibility to the House of Representatives for originating and approving appropriations and taxes. And it goes on again, and it says these 545 people, and they alone are responsible. They and they alone have the power. They and they alone should be held accountable by the people who are their bosses, provided the voters have the gumption to manage their own employees. They are our employees. We should vote all of them out of office and clean up their mess. Well, Charlie, that was your farewell column, and nobody could have said it better. And here we go, all these years later. Abraham Lincoln was talking about things like this in the 1800s. Here we are. 10 years ago, they talked about draining the swamp, and we still haven't drained the swamp. We still haven't put a dent in the swamp. And the sad part is, when he ended this, he said, if you got the gumption to do it, it's our fault. It's the voters' fault. We get what we allow to exist. So I'm glad we got to this today. We had that segue and on all forms of government, and now we see the circus going on this afternoon in Washington, and we can continue.
Well, what's interesting is, you know, that speaks volumes. That letter speaks volumes about what our city council doesn't do.
Yeah.
They don't do their job, obviously.
Yeah.
But something I wanted to bring up about this economic development issue, because Mayor Paul Coogan said he's going to leave the selection of the block grant funding to Mark Dion. Also, the sitting mayor generally directs where the money goes. We've always called the community development block grant as the mayor's checkbook. He can write the money to go wherever he wants. Now, my question is, why is Paul taking a hands-off approach? Is that because he doesn't want it to come back and somebody say, oh, look, you gave it back to Ken Fiola, or, oh, look, you gave it to the RDA? Or is it truly he's giving it a hands-off approach because Mike Dion knows best? And Mike Dion is a very knowledgeable person. He's been doing this for a lot of years. And I personally believe that Mike will listen to the public. So if you want to know, if you want some input on where this is going to go, call Mike Dion's office.
I'll tell him where to go. I'll tell him where to all go, because it shouldn't be going to subsidize public entities looking for handouts to keep subsidizing themselves. Let's bring somebody in that's actually going to invest in the city. And, you know, as I said, Paul and I can always agree and disagree without being disagreeable. I totally think this position is wrong for him. You know, I'm not casting an aspersion on Mike Dion. He's been doing that job a long time. But the fact is, the mayor is the captain of the ship. He determines the economic direction and the cost that the ship of Fall River, you know, the USS Fall River, takes. And it's up to him to determine it with not only if, and I don't have a problem with him saying, I'm going to sit down with Mike Dion, I'm going to sit down with people who have plans for this city, and we're going to talk about it. But he is there to make the ultimate decision. I don't agree with him allowing somebody else to say, well, I'm going to leave it to him, because as it says, the sitting mayor generally directs where the money will go. And that can cause politics too. You're damned if you do, or you're damned if you don't. This isn't about the damned if you do, damned if you don't. This is about being the leader of the city. When you're the leader of the city, you don't let the other people do that.
And let's make this decision based upon what they've produced. In 2 years, the RDA has produced nothing. They have produced nothing, and they've spent money. But they've produced nothing.
Yeah.
As much as I'm not all for Ken Fiola and the old Froed to get the contract, at least they produced things. They produced things that you could see, that you could feel.
And some people would say they produced less than nothing. So listen, if this doesn't get you a little fired up, we've still got a while till the next election, but it's coming. It's on the horizon. And remember, get out there. Let's start the ball rolling and get involved. CAG, when the weather breaks, CAG will be having a lot of initiatives going forward. Repealing the CPA, getting rid of the charter, CJ and his favorite underride. We're going to be doing a lot. We're going to be doing a lot of things, and the most important thing, at least to me, is getting people involved who want to truly change this city and getting some of those people to run for office.
Hey, thanks for watching. We'll see you on Wednesday.